Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Dear devotees, first of all, I wish you blessings of the Noble Triple Gem. Today, let us reflect on our Supreme Buddha's teaching on our thoughts. And I would like to share with you today how we can manage our unnecessary thoughts. I use the term unnecessary because in your own experience, you might have realized that much of the thoughts that come to our mind, that occurs in our mind, are not always necessary. And we had to deal with so many unnecessary thoughts in our lives. Some thoughts that occur in our mind may not be pleasant, may not be even useful. So therefore, it is important for us to know how to manage our thoughts, and particularly how to manage unnecessary thoughts, because these unnecessary thoughts can lead us to places of darkness, and those thoughts bring us certain emotions which may not be pleasant and even healthy. And therefore, it's really important to learn the skills from the teachings of the Buddha and how we can manage our thoughts, and particularly how we can manage our unwanted thoughts. But before we talk about that, let's understand this human capacity to think. As human beings, we have this ability to imagine, to conceptualize, to even fantasize, even formulate ideas. So this ability to formulate concepts, ideas, imagining, and this ability has helped human beings to evolve themselves beyond other animals. And other animals also have this ability to think, ability to formulate, some basic ideas. But human beings have the highest ability and capacity for that. And as human beings, we are not only responding to our immediate environment, but we can also formulate ideas based on basic things around us. And we can also imagine the future. We can plan the future. And we can imagine a situation in our mind even though it is not happening around us. And that's a special capacity we have as human beings. And because of this ability, human beings were able to create new things and create new lifestyles, because they were able to see things before things happen. And they can imagine things. They can fantasize things. And this ability, in a way, helped human beings too. But from the teachings of the Buddha, we can learn that this is a special human ability to think, to formulate ideas, and to imagine can be detrimental to us also. In the Pali language, we use the term mano to refer to this ability to formulate ideas, to think, to imagine. And so when we get sensory data and what we call the mind, the ability of our the ability to formulate ideas, the mano, the special faculty called mano organizes these initial sensory data and formulate ideas. And then, of course, it can move beyond formulating ideas into imagining situations, and even planning, and even fantasizing. And this although it has helped human being to a certain extent, when we think about our personal life, this tendency of our human mind to quickly imagining things, to quickly to fantasize things, can be detrimental, because we can have a habit of imagining the worst. Whenever we see a situation, whenever we see things or hear things or smell things, when we have some rudimentary, basic sensory data, we can think beyond and imagine a situation, and we can have certain habits, tendencies in our mind that we we imagine situations which may not be real practical, which may not really even can happen, but we do it. And so the Buddha also uses another special term called Papancha for this tendency of the mind, proliferation. Papancheti, we engage in proliferating thoughts and emotions. So when you can see we can see some simple thing. For example, we can see a flower, and then from that we can bring our previous memories about that flower, and then we can relive in the past in the memories that are related to similar kind of flowers. And then that thinking can bring certain emotions in us, which may not be pleasant all the time. And we can do same thing with regard to future also. We can see a person, or we can see a place, for example, whenever we travel, and then that initial visual form can be a starting point of our thinking a long series of thoughts, and sometimes even projecting ourselves into the future and creating so many thoughts. And sometimes these fantasizing and imagining can bring us certain anxieties and fear in us too. So although these thoughts are happening without any basis, we start our thinking based on an initial sensory experience, but then we engage in this thinking, and then ultimately they produce certain emotions such as anxiety, fear, and even sadness and disappointments, and all these unhealthy emotions too. Therefore, it's really important for us to learn the techniques, how to deal with unnecessary thoughts, how to deal with unwanted thoughts. We know that, although much of the thoughts that come to our mind are uninvited. Sometimes most of the thoughts that we think are not really, we have purposely selected to think. We use this English term, I think. That term, I think, or we think, can give us an idea that, we purposely think all the time. In our real life, we know that most of the thoughts that come to our mind are automatic. Thoughts occur in our mind, and we don't really purposely select them. And therefore, it is important for us to learn how to manage these unnecessary thoughts. In most cases, we don't really purposely think. Instead of I think or we think, thoughts automatically occur in our mind, and some thoughts are not really necessary. We even don't want to think about those issues, but those thoughts occur to us. So what we can learn from the teachings of the Buddha on how to deal with these thoughts? First of all, we can learn from the teachings of the Buddha that thoughts are actually forms of habits. How thoughts occur to us is a result of a habit. We have habits of speech, we have habits of our physical behavior, and thoughts that are occurring in our mind can also be a result of a habit. And of course, whatever we see, hear, smell, taste, what is available in our surrounding environment can trigger certain thoughts. But these patterns of thoughts can be our previous habitual habit. Therefore, the teachings of the Buddha help us, first of all, to understand that whatever we are thinking, our thoughts are not real. This is an important understanding, we should develop. Our thoughts are not real, and they are ephemeral, and they can be there. The thoughts just occur in our mind. But this is not how we feel about thoughts. And we give so much value to our thought more than they deserve. Because when these thoughts occur in our mind, we feel that they are somehow authentic to us. Somehow, they belong to us, more than, other things. But the Buddha has taught us to understand that, these thoughts are actually they are not really, they don't have a real existence. They are not real, because we can think about anything. And this deep understanding that thoughts are not real is a very important realization. And of course, our sensation, our sensory experience has some reality. Of course, they are also not really real, but they have some reality. But particularly thoughts, imagining and conceptualization happening in our mind is not real, although they feel very real to us. And that understanding can help us a lot to kind of free ourselves from unnecessary thoughts, from the tyranny of thoughts. But of course, that understanding itself is not enough, because and so Buddha says that just like we have our eye, and then we see visual forms, various kind of images and colors, and we have our ear, and we can also hear various kinds of sounds, and then in the same way, Buddha says that we have this mind, or what we call mano, and then we can have different thoughts, memories, and concepts occurring as a part of our sensory experience. And so based on that, Buddha, we can learn from the teachings of the Buddha that thoughts are not really ours too. And we have a special relationship with our thoughts. And we think that these thoughts somehow really belong to us, really part of us. But Buddha's teaching offers us another model to understand these thoughts. Just like we see a visual form, or just like we hear different kind of sounds, and then we don't really think that sounds that is that comes to our ear is ours. We don't really think that whatever visual forms or colors and shapes that we see in front of us are ours. They simply we have an eye, and we simply observe them. And the Buddha is inviting us to look at our thoughts in the same way too. Just like the relationship between an eye and an image, a visual form, or an ear and a sound is the same kind of relationship that we will that exists between the mind and a thought. And this understanding that thoughts are not real and thoughts are not really mine, the thoughts and this understanding can help us a lot to develop a kind of a distance, a kind of awareness of our thoughts. But this awareness is only kind of basic beginning of how on managing thoughts. But the real technique comes whenever we are going through a certain unnecessary thoughts. Let's say we saw someone passing by, and we had a bad memory about that person, and then we start thinking about that person, thinking about what happened previously, and we can relive in the past, and then we can even imagine that if I get another chance, I will say this to this person, I will do this to this person, and we can have a whole drama in our mind. Although it's not really happening, we only saw that person passing by, but then we can have a whole drama in our mind. when these things are happening in our mind, we are kind of, overwhelmed by so many unwholesome thoughts, unwholesome memories, and even imagining a worst kind of situations. And so we are under control of all these, series of thoughts. When these things happen, it's really difficult, for us to, get rid of that tyranny of thoughts. But if you have learned the teachings of the Buddha, if you have some deep understanding, prior reflections, of prior learning that thoughts are not real and thoughts are not mine, at least if you have that kind of prior understanding, maybe that can help us to kind of, stop, or maybe kind of even be aware of this, continuous occurrence of unnecessary thoughts. But the real technique comes when we can become aware of our own thoughts. So this is another technique that we can learn from the teachings of the Buddha. And the Buddha said that, we should develop our awareness, our mindfulness, our attention directed towards ourselves. We should develop our awareness about our body. We should develop our awareness about our sensations. We should develop our awareness of our mind itself. We should also develop our awareness of our thoughts. So we call these 4 foundations of mindfulness, or Satara Satipatthana, the basic, the key training in the Buddha's teaching. So this ability to be aware of our bodies, feelings, mind, and thoughts are the key in our spiritual progress. So when we are overwhelmed by thoughts or memories or unnecessary, fantasizings, most important thing to do is actually to be aware that thoughts are occurring. Be aware that I'm in the mid of a storm of thoughts. That very awareness is the key. Just become aware of the situation. I am surrounded by thoughts. I'm overwhelmed by thoughts. I'm being surrounded. I'm being captured by thoughts. Just be aware of that. And one way we can do it actually is simply observing our body, because whenever we are going through unnecessary thoughts, strong emotions, we can see there's an important impact that we are doing to our body. So there are changes happening in the body, like it can be a change in the breath, it can be change in the muscles, it can be change in our heartbeat. So first technique would be just become aware of our body, and then eventually we can become aware of our thoughts. Simply becoming aware that I'm in the mid of thoughts. That awareness is the key. And we are not going to stop any thinking happening. We are not going to even blame ourselves that we are unnecessarily fantasizing things or unnecessarily imagining things. And we simply become aware of that. And that very awareness can create a kind of interesting space between ourselves and the thoughts. It is just like, we can see clouds in the sky. So there can be so many clouds and heavy clouds. But at the same time, there are also a sky above that clouds. So in the same way, although our mind is full of thoughts, full of emotions, full of imaginings, and these fantasizing, all those these things are happening. Although our mind is full of that, at any time, if we do this, we also have what you call we can also become aware of that very cloud of thoughts by simply turning attention inward, as we call it sati, or mindfulness, or attention directed inward. So it is just like any time we can be in the sky rather than in the clouds. Although the sky can be full of clouds, we can go little bit above the clouds and be in the sky and watch the clouds. In the same way, although our mind is full of thoughts and emotions, we can quickly become aware of it, and we can move ourselves to our awareness. We can move ourselves to our mindfulness and attention, and turn that attention to those thoughts and become aware of that. And that is the key to manage our thoughts. Once you become aware of these thoughts and also related physical sensations, then we can apply another technique. That is use of our breath to calm ourselves, use of our breath to break the cycle of thoughts. So breath is a very important tool for us to come back to the reality, to come back to reality and also go beyond our thoughts. So what we can do whenever we are in the middle of that kind of thoughts, and first is to become aware, and then also have this basic understanding that thoughts are not real. Although I'm thinking about this, although I'm imagining these things are not happening right now. I may be thinking of a situation happened a few days ago, but it is not really happening now. And I may be thinking of a situation that if I meet that person again, this is how I'm going to talk with him, this I'm going to argue, this I'm going to defend myself next time. We may be thinking about these things, and then, but we become aware of our own thoughts and then bring that understanding that, this conversation is not really happening now. It's not happening, I'm just imagining. And that very basic awareness and the becoming aware of these thoughts and then bringing that understanding that thoughts are not real and even thoughts are not mine is very important for us to kind of break away from the continuous occurrence of thoughts. But using the breath is very helpful here. So what we can do, once we become aware of our thoughts and then bring that understanding that these are not real, and then we can utilize our breath. Usually we can take a long, deep breath and release that breath very slowly. If we can do it 3 times, that very breath can help us to bring down the energy of the mind, and very breath kind of bring our attention to our body, to our sensations, what is really happening in the body, and that bringing the awareness to our body can help us to be free from continuous occurrence of thoughts. So use your breath as a way to be free from unnecessary thoughts. Whenever you feel that you are thinking about something that you don't want to think, and you are going through a certain emotion that you don't want to have, and remember, these basic teachings of the Buddha, these thoughts are not real, and become aware that this is, and also deep understanding that this is the nature of the mind, and this mind is simply repeating its previous habits. And although these thoughts occur to me, and those are not really belongs to me, there's no special. We should not give any credibility to these thoughts. And of course, there are certain thoughts that we purposely think, we purposely plan. But I'm talking about unnecessary thoughts, and then we can use our breath as a way to come back to real situation, real moment, and breaking away from unnecessary thoughts. So let me share one story to briefly for us to understand how we can be lost in our thoughts and lost in reality if we don't take care of, if we don't really manage and handle our unnecessary thoughts. This is about a person who is actually who wanted a hammer to hang a picture of his house. So he was looking for a hammer in his at his home. He couldn't find any hammer, so he decided to ask a hammer from his neighbor. But before he go out to ask for that hammer, he was thinking, whether this person give me the hammer. And he was just thinking twice. It will be so embarrassing for me to go all the way and ask a hammer. And what if he rejects to give me the hammer? And then he's justifying that, thinking 2 days ago when I was walking outside, he was also in his veranda, but he didn't smile with me. And maybe he's not really friendly with me these days. Therefore, if I go all the way and ask the hammer, if he doesn't give me the hammer, that will be so embarrassing. So this person is thinking even before he's opened the door, and even he even make any actual movement, and he already started to think, what if the neighbor rejects to give the hammer? So when he's having this, all this, thinking, imagining how embarrassing it is, and if he rejects the hammer, and then suddenly he was still sitting at his own home while he was having these thoughts, and then suddenly he heard the doorbell, and so the doorbell kind of bring his attention away. He was kind of thinking all these thoughts, and then he had to go and open the door. So when he opens the door, he saw the neighbor that he was thinking about is just in front of him. So his neighbor has come to see him for some business. And then he suddenly, as soon as he saw this neighbor, and all the things that he was thinking about that neighbor, felt so real to him. And he shouted at him, and keep your hammer, I don't want it. The neighbor has no idea what he's talking about. And then, neighbor asked, what are you talking about? And then he said, keep your hammer, I don't want it. And then after a while, he realized that, all these thoughts that, the neighbor rejecting hammer did not really happen. It just occurred in my mind. And then neighbor started to laugh, and, they were started to kind of, build their friendship again. But this is the normal situation that's happening in our lives. So therefore, we may be engaging in these kind of thoughts most of the time, but we are so fortunate that we have the teachings of the Buddha, we have the techniques that we can learn from the Buddha to manage these thoughts and help ourselves to be free from unnecessary burden, unnecessary emotional pain when we know how to handle, how to manage our thoughts. So again, my advice is to learn from the teachings of the Buddha, and first thing is to learn our thoughts are not real. Our thoughts do not really belong to us. Those thoughts occur as a result of habit and based on our sensory data, and that deep understanding is very important. And then next thing is that whenever we are going through thoughts, particular unnecessary thoughts and unnecessary emotions, just be aware of it. Develop the awareness of very thoughts. We can start with our bodily sensation. When there's a change in the bodily sensation, heartbeat, breath, and just use that as a starting point, and then becoming aware that, oh, I'm in the middle of thoughts. These are thoughts. Just acknowledge and just reflect, thoughts, and become aware of them. And simply aware that I'm in the middle of the thoughts, and then bring that understanding that thoughts are not real. And then use the breath as a way to break away from these thoughts, because thoughts can be so powerful, so enticing. So take a deep breath and take 3 breaths, and that will help you to come back to your reality. And then we can be free from unnecessary thoughts and emotions. We may have to do it a few times, but these are the practical tips that we can do in our daily life. Of course, the real solution comes when we engage in deeper meditation, in a systematic training of our mind, which you can do in your training. But I invite you to use these techniques in your daily life, and then you can be free from unnecessary thoughts. So I wish you a healthy mind, and I wish you a more awareness of your own thoughts. I wish you that you'll be able to manage your unnecessary thoughts and use that space of the mind to generate wholesome thoughts and engage in useful thoughts of kindness, compassion, and loving care. And so in that way we can grow ourselves in our spiritual path. So I wish you the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem to manage your thoughts and make your mind free from unnecessary thoughts. Thank you.
මෙවැනි වටිනා ධර්මදේශනා නැරඹීමට ජයමග TV YouTube නාලිකාව සබස්ක්‍රයිබ් කර සීනුව ලකුණ ක්ලික් කරන්න.